In January 2007, Microsoft finally launched Windows Vista, their most ambitious operating system ever. It had futuristic glass windows, bold new security, and promises that it would reshape how we used our PCs. But instead of being remembered as revolutionary, Vista became one of tech's most infamous failures: slow, buggy, incompatible, and ridiculed by competitors.
Cancel or allow? Allow.
The real story, though, is more complicated. Vista wasn't just a flaw, it was a victim of delays, hype, hardware problems, and expectations it could never meet. And weirdly, much of what Vista introduced became the backbone of Windows today. Now, to understand Vista, we have to rewind to 2001. Windows XP had just launched, and it was a smash hit. For many users, XP felt perfect, stable, user-friendly, colorful, but Microsoft was already planning its successor, codenamed Longhorn. Now, this wasn't just a minor update. Longhorn was pitched as the biggest Windows overhaul ever. The original vision included stuff like next-gen graphics with a revolutionary interface, better file systems, included a brand new system called WinFS that would make searching and organizing files as natural as browsing the web. Rock-solid security in an age when XP was constantly under attack from viruses, and a deep integration with 64-bit computing and powerful new GPUs. Now, Longhorn was shown off at Microsoft's developer conferences in 2003 with futuristic demos.
Database technology, getting it into the file system.
3D window flipping, advanced previews, next-gen search. It looked incredible. But internally, the project was collapsing. By 2004, Longhorn builds were unstable and bloated. Microsoft threw out years of work and restarted the whole thing. This time, based on Windows Server 2003. Many ambitious features like WinFS were cut entirely. This reset delayed the release by years. Instead of following XP in 2003, Vista didn't arrive until 2007. That's 6 years, the longest gap in Windows history at the time. And as you can guess, during that gap, people's expectations went from excitement to doubt.
What do you think? 1, 2, 3, go yeah!
When Vista finally launched on January 30th, 2007, it looked like the future. The new Windows era interface had translucent glass windows, smooth animations compared to XP's chunky blue and green look. Vista felt sleek and modern. Microsoft poured millions into ads with the slogan, "The wow starts now." Commercials showed glowing screens, amazed kids. Vista was marketed as the next era of Windows, but the wow quickly wore off. Now, Vista's biggest issue was performance. It demanded far more resources than XP. Aero needed a decent GPU, and the OS ran best with at least 1 GB of RAM, but many computers at the time still shipped with 512 MB. Machines that flew on XP suddenly crawled under Vista. Boot times were slow, programs lagged, laptop batteries drained faster. Confusion over editions didn't help either. Vista shipped in 6 different versions: Starter, Home Basic, Home Premium, Business, Enterprise, and Ultimate. Customers were overwhelmed, and many computers labeled Vista capable could only run the bare bones Home Basic edition without the Era glass. That led to lawsuits and headlines that further damaged Vista's image. Another nightmare was driver support. Vista introduced a new driver model, but many hardware makers weren't ready. Printers, scanners, webcams, even some graphic cards didn't work properly at launch. Software compatibility was rocky too. Older applications that ran flawlessly on XP often broke or performed poorly on Vista. Businesses relying on legacy software decided to stick with XP, forcing Microsoft to extend XP's support for years. To everyday users, the message was clear. Upgrading to Vista means breaking half your setup. Then came User Account Control, or UAC. On paper, it was smart. Every time software tried to change system settings, a prompt appeared to confirm. But in practice, endless pop-ups asking, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Users hated it, and Apple capitalized. In their famous Get a Mac commercials, we can see a PC character was constantly interrupted by Vista's security prompts, while the Mac stayed cool and effortless. Vista wasn't just buggy anymore, it was a punchline. And speaking of Apple, the timing couldn't have been worse. Just 9 months after Vista launched, Apple released Mac OS X Leopard in October 2007. Leopard added Time Machine's backups, spaces for virtual desktops, quick look previews, and a redesigned dock with cover flow and stacks. While Leopard had its own bugs at launch, it was generally praised for polish and user experience, especially when compared to Vista's rocky debut. Culturally, Apple used Vista's flaws as a foil. The Get a Mac ads reinforced the idea that PCs were clunky and frustrating, while Macs were smooth and reliable. Market share numbers still heavily favored Microsoft, but Apple won the culture war, and Vista's reputation sank even lower. But here's what most people forgot. Vista wasn't all bad. First, it pushed 64-bit computing into the mainstream. It introduced DirectX 10, which shaped modern PC gaming. The search bar in the Start menu, a feature we all take for granted today, started with Vista, and while UAC was annoying, Vista's stricter security model really did make Windows safer than the virus-ridden XP era. Microsoft released service packs in 2008 and 2009 that dramatically improved speed, stability, and compatibility. By then, Vista was far better than the horror stories made it sound, but unfortunately, its reputation was beyond saving. In 2009, Microsoft launched Windows 7, and here's the twist. Windows 7 was basically Vista, but perfected. It kept Era, the new driver model, and the search bar. It kept UAC, but toned it down. And it ran faster, more efficiently, and worked with more hardware out of the box. Users loved it, and Windows 7 became one of Microsoft's most successful operating systems. Which proves the point. Vista's ideas weren't bad, they were just too ambitious, shipped too early, and landed in a market where hardware and drivers weren't ready yet. So, was Vista a failure? Yes. It was confusing, heavy, and launched into a hostile market where Apple was on the rise. But was it useless? I wouldn't say so. Vista introduced technologies that shaped the future of Windows. It modernized the OS, even if it stumbled badly. In a way, Vista teaches us that sometimes being too early is just as dangerous as being too late. It was the future, but the world wasn't ready yet. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.